And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the battlefield of Ligny. And we're in the Huey here. And we're just starting the battle. We've just been talking about the positions and of the Prussians and the French. And we're now going to have a look at what essentially was Napoleon's plan. He believed, by the way, that this battle would be quick. He felt it would be over in about 3 hours. So we're coming around, just flying to the west of Fleurius. This is we're going to just spin around and head north, and we'll come to a hover. So just here is the town of Fleurius. Now if we just we could just pause here, jump out. So essentially, this is the view that Napoleon had, and he has a plan. And his plan all along has been to make sure that the Prussians are pushed back away from Wellington. So his plan has always been, he has this sort of very cool way of using his forces. And we spoke about he had a cavalry force over here. This cavalry force is essentially here to pin the Third Corps of Thieleman's Prussians here on this right-hand side. So Napoleon is very light in terms of infantry on this side, and his attack is essentially going to take an advantage of his numbers on the center and the left. So remember, this here is where Van Damme's corps is, facing this way, and then we have essentially facing Ligny this way, the corps of Gerard. And basically they're going to assault the Prussian center and the right, and hoping that Ney would secure the crossroads at Quatre Bras. And then that will enable him to approach the left flank as well. So there's a lot of pressure he's hoping to apply to the right flank, essentially, of the right and center of the Prussian line, which is here. This is essentially where the Prussians are. He likes to put pressure on these areas and weaken certain areas, and he holds back the Guard, which is essentially in this area to the west, where this sort of quarry area is here. The Guard is sat here, and essentially they will wait for a weakness somewhere in this area, provided by one of the two corps in front of them, and then the Guard will advance through that weakness and hopefully rout the enemy. He says at the time, in 3 hours' time, the campaign will be decided, and if Ney carries out his orders thoroughly, not a gun of the Prussian army will get away. And so, yeah, his main ambition here is to push the Prussians back on their supply lines, back on the this road here out to Namur. Would be great if he could get them to go this way back to Namur here. Then he's essentially driven a wedge between the Allied armies, and he can then turn his attention back to onto Wellington's army itself. Cool. Let's do a bit more flying. So you got to remember as well, a lot of these things that Napoleon says, and also what Wellington says, and to some extent Blucher, is also written as part of their memories. And so you can sometimes read into this thing saying, you know, words like, "Oh, if Ney does his job, you know, we will have a complete victory." It's almost like they've already sort of aligned Ney up as the sort of scapegoat. Okay, let's since we just mentioned Ney, let's find out what he's doing. So the battle is about to be launched here at 2:30 in the afternoon, and the signal for battle being accepted was going to be 3 cannons. So this is a quote here from Ropes on the campaign of Waterloo, and he says that the whole management of Marshal Ney on this day shows distrust of the Emperor's judgment, unwillingness to take the most obvious steps, finally disobedience of orders. So I think that might be a bit harsh. But what we find is that Ney is a little bit hesitant. Let's put it that way. Ney, I think Napoleon finds out that Ney isn't pressing forwards with urgency, and there's the Emperor, about to leave Charleroi, wrote sharply to Ney, whose indecision was being made manifest, commanding him to unite the corps of Ryle and Dale-Erlon with the corps of Kellerman, adding that with these forces you should defeat and destroy any enemies in your front. He describes that Blucher was yesterday at Namur. It is improbable that he could have troops near Quatre Bras, so you have to deal with only with those on the way from Brussels. So he's basically saying there's not going to be any Prussian troops in front of you. They're all gone to Sombref. You'll just find that there's whatever Wellington is going to send to you. So get on with it. Now, before the battles have even begun, there's been two errors that have occurred, and these will come up and essentially threaten the whole victory. The first one was that The Lobal's 6th Corps had been left in Charleroi, or near Charleroi, and they had essentially been left with no orders. And the second one was that no one had actually told Ney that his job on the day would be to come to Napoleon at Sombref and aid him there. There's mention in his letter that Napoleon sent in the morning to him to say, oh, you know, put your 6 divisions on Quatre Bras, put 1 division at Genappe and 1 division at Marbais. Now, Marbais is in between the battlefields, but there is no explicit mention of Ney doing anything more than that. If anything, it was basically Napoleon saying, I will act on what's happening in front of me, not you. Tactically as well, let's with Ligny, the way that Napoleon attacks, he attacks the center and the left, and he does it all at the same time. He doesn't give Blucher an opportunity to redeploy his frontline forces. By engaging along essentially this line. Let's just pause here. Essentially by having Van Damme and Girard's forces all attacking the center and the left at the same time means that Blucher isn't capable of pulling someone out and moving it across, you know, jiggling his front line, and it essentially means that it is forcing Blucher to commit his reserves into the front line instead. And the consequence of that is that for the reserves to be in a position to get to one of these positions, I'll say one that is like Ligny or something like that, one that is under threat, means that the reserves need to be relatively near, and that then exposes them to artillery fire. And remember, this is the infantry are lined up here, and because I think Napoleon doesn't believe Blucher is going to be doing an aggressive movement. For example, Girard has his troops here. He'll have his artillery actually lined up in front of the his infantry, about less than 800 yards away, because essentially he knows that they're not going to come out and try and grab the guns. So the western end of the battlefield, this is this end up here, was particularly fraught in the fighting that's to come. Lots of hand-to-hand combat occurs in these villages. The French try to set fire to the buildings, but a lot of them are stone, so it doesn't work. And essentially there's a number of waves of attacks and counter-attacks go on all for the rest of the day. And we're talking probably 5 or 6 waves of attacks occur in this area here on the western side of the Prussian line. And Napoleon is seeking to advance his guard, getting a bit impatient. And he's believed, again, I'm not sure if this is true or not, that he's sent a message to Ney in the late afternoon to say the fate of France is in your hands. Do not hesitate even for a moment to direct your advance on the heights of Saint-Amand. And so when he says that, he's talking about these heights here. Now, Ney doesn't receive this message until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And essentially, with the distance being probably 5 miles back over here. We're talking this, and remember, Ney is in the middle of a battle himself here. So to get back to these heights from 5 o'clock would be difficult. So Napoleon basically can't wait for him anymore. And 5:30 he prepares to launch an attack of the guard. And he's just about to launch his attack of the guard. So the guard, remember, are here. We can assume that Napoleon is somewhere in this area. Some high ground position, probably maybe here. And he's basically looks across to the left, just as he's about to launch his attack, and he sees a column on his left flank. And scouts have come to him and reported that this column is hostile. And so Napoleon is like, okay, well, I can't send my guard in until I see what this is. And he's forced to postpone his attack until he could verify who it was. And in fact, this column, which was coming across from this direction here, was the Erlon. And because of another mess up with the staff, he was essentially ordered to advance to a place called Wagner. Now, might have to get the other map out here. So remember, this is this place is called Wagnele. Let me just get the other map out. We'll look for we'll zoom in on the area. It's difficult to see where this is, what they're talking about. Let me have a look on our Google map. Doesn't appear to be a place called Wagner. I can see they always keep changing these names. So essentially, I believe that what we're looking at is for if Napoleon is at Fleurus, maybe in between Saint-Amand and Fleurus, he wants de Erlon to come via say Les Bonvillers to Wagner. What's actually happening is that they're coming essentially down this road here on his flank, possibly in this from this area here. Now, if that's the case, then he has to stop, because if that's Wellington coming, then he will have to wait. And this is another example of the poor staff work that the French army is experiencing. The orders are not being written clearly. The chief of staff is Soule. There's mix-ups in messengers. There's mix-up. There's not clear instructions, and it's something that the French army will suffer from a lot because Berthier, his faithful Berthier, chief of staff, is no longer with him. And the other thing as well is that what we're talking about here is essentially de Erlon is approaching kind of from this way here, and de Erlon's made a mistake because what he should have done is, as he's approaching from this direction here, he should have sent a messenger ahead. Could have easily ridden a messenger up to Napoleon's position, let's assume here somewhere, just to say it's me over there, but he doesn't. So that's another mix-up. There's reports at the time as well that the Van Damme's corps, which was here, they're getting nervous. So essentially, I think what we're talking about is that the de Erlon is coming. He's been ordered over to Napoleon's side, and his approach from this angle here has essentially spooked the French left flank. And what that basically means is that Napoleon had an opportunity to send in the guard. As I say, it was probably around about 5 o'clock, and this is delayed until 6:30. And this allows, the hour has allowed the Prussians to reorganize their line, and then the opportunity is kind of lost. In that confusion as well, this is the time when this village here, Saint Amand, is recaptured by the Prussians. So there's a backwards and forwards going on. So Erlon began the day essentially on the road here, just coming out of Charleroi in this sort of region here. He had Duret's 4th Division as his vanguard, followed by Donzelot and the 3rd Division of Marconnet, with a guy called Quillot. He was had the 1st Division, who formed the rear guard. So the description I've got here is that at around 5 o'clock, the corps turned right at an inn called the Cabaret de l'Empereur, which is approximately 2 miles north of the Roman road that crosses the Brussels road. Okay, so the vanguard passed to the south of Bois Dulet and the north of the village of Villers-Perrin, which is essentially, I think this here is the village of Villers-Perrin. So we're talking that they came up this road towards Frasnes, and then they cut across country essentially in this direction here. Possibly because they were supposed to be going to Vangelay, but they didn't. They used this road here. No, they're in this section here, basically, when they're spotted and essentially spook the left flank of the French. Yeah, so basically there's a lot of divisions of d'Erlon's corps here, moving up this road and then heading this way. And what we essentially get is the forward divisions pop out of a wood. Was what they called on the heights north of this village. So essentially they sort of come out here, yeah, in this sort of direction here, and because they've popped out here, this has spooked the left flank of the French. We'll talk about this d'Erlon's movements probably in more detail, but essentially he is ordered across towards. He was going to be Ney's backup at Quatre Bras, so Ney was reliant on him, and so he was essentially to move up here to the battlefield at Quatre Bras here, but he gets orders to move towards Napoleon. So who are you going to obey? He essentially gets marches across to this area here, manages to spook most of the left flank of the French over there, delays Napoleon's attack in the Imperial Guard at 5:30. Ney throws a wobbly when he realizes that D'Erlon isn't coming towards him, and orders him to return back. And essentially what happens is that D'Erlon doesn't take part in any of the battles. Now, D'Erlon has been given another set of woolly instructions as well. Something about there's a report that he was to do his that's it. It wasn't just D'Erlon who gave his 4th Division commander General Duret. He was basically told to come up here and do what was he thought best, which seems a bit woolly. It was something like he had no specific instructions, but just to be careful. And Duret sort of took these instructions as he felt that he, in a sense, he needed to protect the gap in between the two armies, feeling that they could come through, the Prussians could come through. Right, okay, let's take a break there, and when I come back, we'll I think what we'll do is we'll start to actually look at the ins and outs of the battle properly of Ligny, and then we'll do Quatre Bras later on. I'll take a break now. I'll see you in a moment.